Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. So now that Devin Haney is heading over to Australia, trying to become the undisputed champ, this is what's going on. People are now putting their eyes on Devin Haney. But the argument is this. Devin Haney, if he manages to win this fight with Kambosos, then do a rematch with Kambosos and win that. And then if he's able to avoid the traps that, Top Rank has set for him to get caught up in on his way out of trying to exit that, ridiculous contract that he had to sign. Okay? If he's able to do that, does a fight with him and Tank Davis, does it make sense? And two, would that make Devin the A side since he would have all 4 belts? Now, this is the thing. Some people say that the fight makes sense. Some people think it doesn't. And that's because they feel that even for Devin Haney to be the undisputed champion in any 130, 135 pound division, it doesn't matter. Whatever division, they feel like he's not a draw. And they feel like Tank Davis should be out fighting bigger and better opponents and guys who can help him continue to sell pay-per-view and put butts in seats. But Tank Davis, in my opinion, doesn't need anyone else's help. He's being marketed the right way, and he holds a minor lightweight belt, and he's been built into a pay-per-view draw. Tank Davis is known not only in the boxing circuit, not only in the fighting circuit, he's also known over in the Hollywood world as well, and also across the entire sports world. So as far as him getting into a fight with a Devin Haney, because Tank needs the right dancing partner to sell pay-per-view, to fill up arenas, that is not the case. So Tank doesn't necessarily need Devin Haney, but I think it's a point that he wants to prove. Because ever since back in 2017, there have been a lot of back and forth between the two. Devin, of course, thinks he's the better fighter. They even went back and forth talking about reasons why the two of them haven't fought. And truth being told, the reason why these guys didn't fight back then, and let's just keep it real, early in their careers, it didn't make sense to put two, pit bulls against each other who had promising careers ahead of them. Why go out there when these guys are not even at 15 fights, have them fight and somebody take a loss? So I think the right choice was made by them not fighting. But now, these things are starting to bubble up. Tank Davis, he has a big fight coming up with Rolly Romero. Not going to be an easy fight. Tank should win, no doubt about that. I got it wrong with my prediction on Lemieux and Benavidez because I did not think Benavidez was going to work on his defense. And he also worked on his offense. And Benavidez came into that fight with Lemieux, a totally different animal that we're used to seeing. And if Benavidez can take a guy like Lemieux serious, can lock himself away for 5 months and really hone his skills to where he comes out into the fight, he can potentially get the guy out in the first round. And that's what really should have happened, but it took a couple more rounds. It is what it is. But with Tank Davis, kind of similar to what happened with Benavidez and Lemieux here. Tank Davis has pretty much disappeared from the face of the earth. And what he's been doing is training. Let me tell you something. Tank Davis is taking Rolly serious. His team knows Rolly's a dangerous fighter. It's a physical fight. It's an ugly fight. And when it comes to the physicalities and the roughness that's going to take place in that fight, if Davis can't get Rolly out of there early, or if Rolly doesn't, catch him with something, it's going to be to Gervonta's disadvantage. But Gervonta should win with no problem. I'm just talking about if they start wrestling and tussling. Rolly will fight you dirty. But I am expecting Tank to get Rolly out of there. If not, he's going to easily outbox him. Maybe later in the fight, around 6 through 8, I see Tank stopping him. But if Tank can get through Rolly, and Devin clips Kambosos, right? He wins decision or whatever it is. Now you're looking at Devin in a rematch and Tank having to find a dancing partner before the end of the year. So he and Devin won't be able to fight till after Devin has a rematch with Kambosos, and Devin has to win that. So really, in 2023, maybe we'd be looking at Tank and Davis. But this is the deal. You got Teofimo out there. You have other fighters between 130, 135, even up to 140. You know, Pitbull Cruz is going to want a piece of the action. Ryan Garcia is going to want a piece of the action. So I'm not sure Tank and Devin Haney should come together for an undisputed fight when there are other opportunities. And in my opinion, they should really look at that and pursue other avenues. You got Chris Colbert out there who just lost. Hey, that's a good cherry pick for somebody, because Colbert's going to need a comeback fight. He's kind of has a decent name, but he hasn't really earned it right at a big shot. But that would be a good fight for Tank later this year, because they're not going to put him in there with a killer at this moment. You know, Tank has to figure out a lot of things. He has a lot of things going on right now in his personal life, and also professionally. He has to figure out what he's going to do going forward. But if he can get through that, I don't see them putting him in something where he's going to have to stress himself out preparing for a killer, knowing that he has all these things going on in his personal life. So if he was going to take on another fight this year, I definitely don't think it'll be someone where he has to really. I don't see them put him in a 50-50 fight. I don't see that. After he gets through all this BS, he has a clear mind. He can manage his time better. He doesn't have whatever commitments that he's going to have, especially with the whole court and everything else. 2023, I can see Tank being put in there with some fights that people could say, hey, it could go either way. But at the end of the day, you know, Tank is the draw. But with him and Devin Haney, this becomes, okay, now people want to break this down into a category of Devin being the boxer, Tank being the puncher. Let's make this clear. Devin is a superb boxer. This is a decent power. Tank is a superb boxer. Scary power. Doesn't matter if you listen to Rolly Romero say Tank is a weight bully, he weight drains his opponents, fights him on last minute, has guys out there in saltwater baths for 8 hours. There's obviously some truth to some of the stuff Rolly's saying, and you got to take that into consideration. But at the end of the day, right, we can't pretend that Tank doesn't have concrete in his fist. Okay, I get it. Losing weight can affect your punch resistance. Being dehydrated can affect your punch resistance. I understand that. But Tank, outside of these matches with these opponents, is known for knocking people out, hurting his fighters. Everyone who spars with him, who has fought him, talks about his power. Now, the one thing I'm not going to get into the other stuff, right? I'm going to leave it at that, Tank's power. So you figure if Tank and Devin are in a boxing match, right? Tank, I don't think, is going to dance around the ring. I think he's going to be cutting the ring off, making Devin and stressing Devin out mentally and letting his shots go. Not sure Devin has the kind of power it would take to discourage Tank. Tank is going to walk him down. And when he starts to corner him, he's going to let his hands go. And the other thing, if Devin, this is going to be the Devin's downfall. Let's say Devin fights Kambosos. And in the fight, the first fight and second fight, Devin wins both. Somehow next year he gets an opportunity to fight Tank. They sign. What's going to be to Devin Haney's detriment, right? If in those first two fights with Kambosos, Devin holds his ground and exchanges with Kambosos and survives the exchanges and somehow goes on to win on decision, Devin Haney may be under this delusion that now he can sit in the pocket and exchange with fighters. Now, he can get away with that with some people, but that is not the kind of fight he needs to have with a guy like Tank. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because you may say, well, Devin's going to be smart in boxing. No. Devin's still young. And he's made mistakes in his last couple of fights where he wants to stay in the pocket too long and prove that he can exchange and to prove that he has power. That was one of the biggest things he was harping on when he fought Jojo Diaz, is just asking about his power. He asked Linares the same thing. How's my power? What do you think of my power? And it's almost like when Caleb Plant was in the ring with Canelo. So I'm a pretty good boxer, huh? I'm a pretty good boxer. Asking, almost looking for validation from the opponent. Now, it doesn't matter what the opponent's opinion is of you. It's your belief in yourself. Now, you know if you have power. You know if you don't really have that kind of power. If you're in the ring fighting people and you're not knocking anybody out, if you're not hitting people and they're not going down taking a knee and saying, nah, I don't want no more, you probably don't have that kind of power. Okay? So I think with Tank looking for validation and maybe not getting the answer that he wants to hear, that's what has driven him in a fight like with Linares, a fight with Jojo Diaz, to stay in the pocket, to me, way too long and take unnecessary damage. He's going to hit with Kambosos. If he does that and somehow is able to escape those fights, like he was able to escape against Linares, able to escape against Jojo Diaz. Devin Haney, if he and Tank able to sort out a fight going into 2023, I can see him trying that. And I can see him getting hurt. Don't get me wrong. When Devin Haney was fighting Linares, like those first, 7 rounds before he got clipped, Devin Haney looked, there's no words to describe how exceptional he looked. In almost all of his boxing matches, he looks exceptional. He and Shakur Stevenson remind me a lot of each other. They are exceptional boxers. But there comes a time, right, where that's only going to get you so far. Devin going in there with a guy like Tank, who's intelligent, has the same thing, amateur pedigree, but he has concrete in his fist. He can cut that ring off, and he is going to eventually touch Devin. And that's why Devin Haney and Tank Davis going into a fight together, I would have to favor Tank. And to be quite frank, I favor Tank Davis going into a fight with anyone. You know, and Tank makes a point. You know, Tank, he hasn't really been given anything, although he's kind of had the red carpet treatment being associated with Mayweather. But Tank's out here and he's fighting. You know, Leo Santa Cruz is smaller than him. Look, let's not be fooled here, right? Leo Santa Cruz, that guy, look at him, man. He melts all the way down to these super light weights, you know, the 126 or whatever. You look at his frame, Leo Santa Cruz can easily walk around here about 150 pounds. So their ability and their discipline to melt down to what I think is a sick weight for some of these boxers, you can't fault a guy like Gervonta for going now, making the fight, especially him being the A side and being the draw, and these guys coming up. Because really, a lot of these guys in the weight classes they're fighting at, they probably shouldn't even be there as far as what weight is truly healthy for them. They squeeze themselves down for that moment in time to make a weight, and then they go back and that's where they balloon up 10 to 20 pounds on fight night. So let's not, I think we need to be careful when we're talking about fighters being weight bullies. I do think the one argument we can pull from that is when you have a fighter who is melting all the way down and struggling to get the last 3-4 pounds off, and they start depriving themselves of food, depriving themselves of water in these saunas, jogging, sweating with these with the jogging suits on and the sweatsuits on. That's where it gets dangerous. We've seen in different videos of fighters, whether it's from boxing, the MMA world, they can't even walk to the damn scale. You say, okay, we've seen that in MMA fights. Munguia, like he's ready to die in his most recent fight. Horrible to see that. Horrible. So this, I just wanted to point that out, that these guys who are walking around here, who are fighting at 126, 130, 35, 40, 47 people, that's not a healthy weight for most of them. They just kill themselves to get there. That way they have an advantage. And you say, you know what, man, why do you say that? Did this recently started happening? No, man, it's been going on forever. There's fighters who've died trying to make weight, okay? I didn't pull all that, but I know that for a fact. It's not healthy, man. And I'll tell you something I know off the top of my head. Oscar De La Hoya. This man coming in here at 130 pounds, right? Oscar De La Hoya should have never been at that weight. He was killing himself. There's interviews out there just talking about De La Hoya, and I'm throwing his name out there because it's a popular name. Was killing himself, at 130 pounds, 135, 140, 147, then 154. You look at Adrian Broner, same thing. It comes a point to where you just can't do it anymore because it's not healthy. So as far as Gervonta Davis being a weight bully, I think we should use that term loosely, or not use it so loosely. I think we should be careful calling him a weight bully. Guys are choosing to come down and fight him because he's the A side or whatever weight that he dictates. So that's their choice. But I don't think he's a weight bully. But him and Devin Haney, I think that just boils down to if Devin Haney can really keep Tank off him for the whole 12 rounds. Devin Haney has proven that he has the legs and boxing ability to go a whole 12 rounds. But at some point in his recent fights, he slows down just enough to get touched. And he's not getting touched by Tank Davis. And Tank Davis has the engine to go to full 12 rounds. Some could argue that, hey, when Tank fought Pitbull Cruz, the smaller man had Tank on his bicycle. Well, that smaller man is not a normal smaller man. Pitbull Cruz is a different type of animal. That's why I wish that fight between Pitbull Cruz and Ryan Garcia would have came off, just so Pitbull Cruz could show people just what he's all about. Because when he fought Gamboa, Gamboa definitely didn't look like the same Gamboa. He had like a moment in time in round 2 where he came out strong, looked pretty good for about 5 seconds. Then Pitbull Cruz kind of snapped him back into reality. But I think Pitbull Cruz, he's the real deal. But I think definitely he needs to get another big name. I think Pitbull Cruz and Teofimo Lopez will be a good fight. I know Teofimo's going up to 140. That's what he said. But when it comes to Pitbull Cruz, Ryan Garcia is a good fight, but I think Pitbull Cruz could clip Teofimo. I do. But again, so we're trying to look at a good measuring stick as far as, Tank against, different opponents and kind of seeing where Devin would rack and stack. But Devin did fight Gamboa. Tank fought Gamboa. And some people are saying Tank struggled to get Gamboa out of there. Tank struggled to get him out of there. Then Devin comes out and say, look what I did to him. I don't think that's a good measuring stick. Styles make fights. Tank looked like he was more or less playing around with him. And it took him a while to get him out of there, but Tank wasn't really letting go a bunch of combinations. He was kind of caught up in the crowd and trying to play to the crowd and stuff like that. And I think that's why Tank ultimately didn't get Gamboa out of there until later in the fight. I think he just kind of allowed Gamboa to exist. But if he wouldn't have played to the crowd and would have buckled down and got more serious, in my opinion, Tank would have got him out of there. But it is what it is. But going forward, we'll see what happens between Tank and Devin Haney. But I think it's a good conversation to start having because it's highly unlikely Devin gets out of 2 fights in Australia against Kambosos. Like, I just don't see him beating Kambosos. Okay, so not that he doesn't have the skill set, but to just come and just downplay Kambosos and saying Kambosos is a one-hit wonder with Teofimo, I just think that's foul. Especially if you look at when he got hit. Teofimo Lopez hits harder than Devin Haney. And Kambosos was dancing salsa in that ring. Like, his equilibrium was gone. His legs were like this. And Teofimo, was trying to get to him, but he couldn't. And Kambosos came back and just shut Teofimo down. He didn't give him an opportunity to get his hands off, to get his shots off. And that's what people are forgetting when it comes to Kambosos. Kambosos is going to fight hard the full 12 rounds. He's going to let his hands go. His output is just as high as Devin Haney's. He probably has maybe a little more power than Haney, okay? Devin Haney's definitely the better boxer, but Kambosos is a good boxer too. So I just think we need to not be so biased and just try to be fair when we're looking at this. Devin Haney more than likely won't get out of there, okay? So, but let's just say he gets out of there. Australia, 2 fights, he comes back. Him and Tank. The battle of the jab, who wins? Devin Haney. When it comes to the overall defense. Look, you can't underestimate Tank has excellent defense. There's little things he does in that ring that the untrained eye just won't see. You may just see a man coming straight forward with his high guard. Tank has exceptional defense, and he has those cat-like reflexes, just like Devin Haney. They're pretty evenly matched, people. Devin may have a little bit, I should have pulled it up. May have a little more height, maybe a little more reach. And he knows how to fight in the ring and keep his distance, but he's not going to be able to paw with that jab and keep that stiff arm out there and try to control the head of Davis and then get his shots off at the same time. Like, that stuff he's not going to be able to do to Davis. Davis will see that coming a mile away. And what's going to happen when he leaves that arm out too long, going against the southpaw, that jab is straight out. All Tank has to do is keep that right leg outside of Devin's left leg and just throw that lead left hand. He's going to catch him. Okay, that's the worst thing Devin could do is keep his jab hand out, kind of straight, straight, keep it straight, and try to hold his head to control his head. That's the worst thing he can do. Leave himself wide open. Tank's too quick, too powerful, and he's too smart for that. So I just don't see any way Devin can win this fight against Tank Davis. You know, he can be boxing an exceptional fight for the first 6 rounds. At some point, the real deal's going to start, and he's going to get caught. They're going to exchange, and he's going to get caught. He may have, superb moments in the fight where he looks wonderful with his combinations. It's going to look like they're landing. Most of them are not going to land. I'm telling you, because Tank's defense is that great. But at some point, Tank's going to have to get his off. He's going to. That's how it happens in almost every fight, except for like when Floyd Mayweather's fighting. At some point, the other fighter gets an opportunity to get shots off. And once Tank starts getting his off, the fight is going to change. I'm telling you. So as far as Tank and Devin, hey, I'd have to go with Tank. I do. And the next thing when it comes to negotiating for the fight, belts. Some people say belts don't matter. I think belts matter. I think it's part of the fighter's resume. You come to the table with no belts or one belt, and like Earl Spence and Crawford. But Spence has been fighting. I'm not gonna say top-notch competition, but Spence has been in there with. This is an argument, right? Who's had the better competition, Spence or Crawford? We could argue that all day because you got to look at what Crawford did at 140. But at 147, Spence has had the better competition at 147. Okay, so now you got the negotiations going on. Obviously, they've gotten beyond the money, and it's all about venue now. But when you come and look at Devin Haney and Tank Davis, at least if Devin is able to clip Kambosos, he beat the man who beat the man who beat the man. That's how it's going to be. Devin Haney beat the man who beat the man, Teofimo, who beat the man, Lomachenko. Tank, who did Tank beat? Barrios, Santa Cruz, Pitbull, Cruz, a lot of Cruzes, Pedraza, Gamboa. I mean, so whose resume is going to really be better? Jojo Diaz, Linares, and Kambosos twice. So again, when it comes to negotiating that fight between Tank and Devin's going to want probably, the lion's share, especially if he's undisputed. But if he can't put butts in seats the way Tank can, that's where you kind of lose your argument. It's one thing if Devin could put the butts in the seats and he was the undisputed champion and he had the better resume. Well, you have a pretty good position. But at this moment, I don't even care if Devin has 4 belts. I just don't think Devin has the argument to come and push for a 70-30, 60-40, 65-35 split. I think, if anything, that'll be in Tank's favor. And that's where they're going to run into a sticking point, because the belts do matter. But some people are of the opinion, doesn't matter if you have 49 belts, 50 belts. If nobody wants to see you, it does not matter. If you can't put butts in seats, if you can't sell tickets, doesn't matter. You can be the undisputed champion in multiple divisions, like Canelo, like what's her name, Clarissa Shields, and how Serrano was. It doesn't matter. It just means nothing. So more to come on these two, but the back and forth is going. You know, they both feel like they kind of been given the red carpet treatment. Davis feels that Haney had a title given to him. Haney feels like Davis has had the world given to him just because of Mayweather. He's been riding on Mayweather's coattail. So the back and forth banter is good, but as far as who's going to win that fight, you know, I don't know. But for me right now, hard for me to vote against Tank. It just really is. And I'm saying that solely because of what he's doing going into this fight with Rolly Romero. Tank has disappeared from the scene. He's working hard. I have a feeling Tank is going to come out there and just obliterate Rolly, because Tank can box and he can fight, and he is super disciplined. He is a reason why he went into hiding for this fight. Not out of fear. It's because he wants to come out and prove a point. This is personal. And I like Rolly. I was saying that, you know, Rolly can pull off the upset. He still can. But not when a guy disappears like this and goes into training, in particular Tank Davis. I just don't see that fight going the distance. And I think at some point, Rolly's going to get frustrated, because Tank's going to outbox him the first few rounds. And then when Tank starts to let those hands go, because Rolly's going to come in with his hands down, get reckless, because Rolly is a fighter. He's a Taekwondo guy. He's come along in boxing. He's looking exceptional right now. But I just think at some point, when you got those bad habits, those patterns, it's going to show up. It's going to resurface at some point. And that's what Tank and them are going to wait for, and then you're going to strike, and I think that's where you see Rolly get hurt and knocked out. But anyway, leave your comments below on Tank and Devin, and just let me know what you think. But I definitely think this is a fight that's starting to bubble. Some people are saying Tank wouldn't even mention his name, but now that Devin could potentially get, you know, an undisputed distinction, now he wants to look at him. I say to that, so what? Isn't that what a fighter's supposed to do? You know, he's supposed to do that, man. It's all about legacy, all about money. But if he can get a fight with Devin, especially if Devin gets all those belts, make the fight. That's what I say. So I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, man, y'all keep safe. I appreciate your support. Shout out to all the veterans. I'm in the breeze.